currently is learning Arabic intensively for 2 years and
Right.
then looking at Middle Eastern history.
Oh, someone snuck in there as we were talking, and I didn't get a chance to introduce her. Hello, Mrs. Obama.
How are you, Joe? It's great to see you. I was sort of listening in while they were getting everything set up. It's so good to hear all the amazing things these young women are doing.
I know. And do you know that so many of them accredit it to you and your inspiration during your visits to London? I hear it over and over again. And I know that Dr. Ogden does at Mulberry, the impact that your visits have had on these young women and actually young women everywhere. Because I know from that first moment when we heard you speak in London in 2009, your message was not just to the girls in the audience, it was the message to young women everywhere. And that message has resonated throughout our schools as it has throughout the world. So I really hope you realize how much this means to us. It really does.
You, all the institutions, the young girls, you all mean a great deal to me. I've said it before, my meetings with you continue to motivate me to stay engaged, to stay hopeful. So it is of mutual benefit. I get as much as I give, and hearing about the progress and the journeys of these young girls, watching their growth and development, it gives me as much pleasure as it does watching my own two young women, my daughters, grow into the young women that they are. So this work is so near and dear to my heart. And Joe, you and so many leaders like you're really the day-to-day force. I pop in every now and then, but the commitment that you've made to your institutions, the day-to-day hard work continues to inspire me as well. So I am excited to be with you and excited to continue to build on these relationships in the years to come.
Thank you for that. And you know what I'm loving is this, that we've now got a younger readers edition of it. And I don't know whether you heard us when we were talking about reading this and reading the original. I'm just picking out those bits, and all the girls here had a bit that really resonated with them. And I know you're going to have their questions and have lots to say. But before we do that, there's something really. I went back and read it again because I read the original, and when I saw the younger readers edition, I thought I must read it again. And I read again about 2009 on that first visit. And, some of the young people in this Zoom call weren't even born, which is very strange to think. Some of them have met you or seen you or heard you in the flesh on several occasions. But what really struck me reading again about that first visit to a London school was how you wrote about how it felt for you. And I just wondered, before we go on to the questions from the girls, whether you could just tell us why you felt that had such an important, I suppose, impact on your going forward as First Lady.
Well, that's an excellent question. And when I think back on where I was at the time, it was at the beginning of our term in the White House. It was one of the first international trips that I had taken, and although I had traveled as an individual, as a professional, it was really the first time being in a setting like that with so many promising young girls. And I think I didn't really go in with a clear set of expectations. I knew that I wanted to make sure that on this trip that I spent time on the ground, because so many of these international trips are focused on the meetings between leaders and the behind the door sessions, and you have the flags and the formality. And I always thought, well, we're here in a country. And if all we know about these visits are what the leaders are doing, and we don't really get a chance to touch the ground and go into communities and show the world what's happening, well, what's the point of these? Kids can't relate to two grown men in suits just talking across a podium, but they can relate to going into a community. So that was really my original purpose. I wanted to use my platform to shine a light on these young girls and institutions like yours who are day-to-day working. So that was my initial sort of purpose. But then when I walked into the school and felt the reception and the enthusiasm, and I looked into the eyes of those girls in the audience, I was moved to tears because they reminded me of me. Girls who were of a different background, who had a different set of experiences. And I was just struck by how even across the ocean, we're so much alike, and there's so much hope and promise. And seeing the mission of your school to really lift up these young women who have so many experiences that can keep them down, but to see them moving beyond the barriers that were so real for them, it just touched me in a way that I didn't expect, and I get emotional right now even just talking about it. So that was really the feeling. It was the hope that I felt from the girls in the audience. The promise, the energy, the inspiration, the motivation, and that just gave me fuel to know that, I'm going to use this platform to help lift up more girls, that my role as First Lady is just not to represent the United States or to represent my family, my husband, my community, but to use this platform to shine a light on all these young girls who I knew were everywhere around the world. So I could go on and on and on, but those were some of the things that were that stood out for me during that first visit.
Yeah, and I think that just shone out from all of us. Although we were hearing it live, and there was 100 or so girls listening to it, the audience, I think when it was televised, every young woman in that situation felt that you were talking to her. So that influence has gone beyond these people, in the screen here now and beyond our schools. But it really, really is a global phenomenon. We're really proud that started in a London school. So thank you again for that. Now, I'm going on to the people you really want to talk to. And somebody who was a few weeks old in 2009, who's now in year 7 at EGA. And again, Mariam, your question really is about obstacles that we might have faced, and particularly now. So do you want to go ahead, Mariam?
Thank you, Ms. Debs. My question to you is, how do you find the motivation to be resilient? And what advice would you give to year 7s like us who have started school amidst a global pandemic?
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's a wonderful question. Resilience is a muscle. And it's a muscle that we don't appreciate, we don't fully understand. Just like confidence, just like finding voice. It comes from practice. It comes from getting into the practice of putting yourself in places that force you to grow and sticking with it through those times. And every time you succeed, when you're in a tough position, whether it's at home or it's at school, whether you're challenging yourself personally, emotionally, academically, when you survive it, you sort of earn another chit of resilience. And those chits build on one another. The more you do it, the stronger you get, the better able you are, the more you understand the feeling of going through something difficult. And instead of leaning away from it, you relax into it and you understand that this is part of the process of growth. So the next time you try something hard and you feel that resistance or you feel that tough time, you remember that you got through it before, right? And you use that memory, that context of what you're capable of, and you push yourself even further the next time. So that's the one thing about resilience. You have to practice it. And if you don't practice it, and by not practicing, that means that you don't try hard things. You don't try new things. You shy away from the things that make you uncomfortable. You wither under struggle. You give up on yourself. If that's what you're practicing, you're not building your resilience muscle, right? So the only way you become resilient is that you go through stuff, you finish it out. Whether you fail or succeed, you assess what that meant to you, and then you get up and you keep going, okay? That's how I developed resilience, continuing to push beyond my comfort zone. And it started at your age. It started before your age. And that would be my message to you all in this time of pandemic. This is another set of hard circumstances, difficult circumstances, unexpected things, right? And you can either wither, or you can fall prey to the pressure, or you can day to day get up, exercise your muscle, and keep going step by step. It's not a rush. It's not a race to resilience. It's a step-by-step, day-by-day process. So every day during this quarantine that you got up and you did what you were supposed to do, you read your book, you did your homework, you showed up online, that is a movement towards something bigger for yourselves, right? And that's what I want you to keep in mind. I've told my daughters this. It's like right now, your job is to get your education, right? That's all you need to worry about, right? Now, many of you have different worries. You may have stresses at home. You may have things going on, but you got to get up every day thinking, I'm going to push through. I'm going to do what I have to do, because every day that I get up and I push towards my education and my preparation, I'm winning, right? It may not feel like it because I can't see it right before me, but I guarantee you that that energy is going to build on itself. And when you're older, you'll have this reserve of knowledge and preparation and energy and resilience that will sustain you for the rest of your lives. So it's a day-by-day process, babe. This isn't something that you discover or learn overnight. And this pandemic, this quarantine I would view this as a great blessing to all of you, right? Because right now you're learning to get through something hard and uncomfortable and unpredictable. And as I've told my girls, that's what life is. No matter how high you get or how smart you are or how successful, life will throw you things that you're not necessarily prepared for. And if you know how to get yourself through it, you will succeed, right? So that's what I would tell you at your age. Just get up and do what you're supposed to do for yourself. Get yourself ready for the life that that's lying before you. Does that make sense?
Oh, it certainly does. Mariam, does that answer your question?
That answers my question perfectly.
Yeah, and I think to view the pandemic as something that will help us in the future is a really positive way of looking at things. If we just spend our time just blaming everything and making excuses and thinking, well, I don't have to do well at school because it's a pandemic, then we've lost anyway. So I think that's such great advice. Thank you for that. And I know, Sanisha, your question was a bit about, wasn't it, about giving advice? Do you want to go ahead with your question? Sanisha's at Mulberry, and again, you're in year 7. I don't know when you were born, whether you were born before April the 2nd, 2009 or afterwards.
Thank you, Ms. Gibbs. Hello, Mrs. Obama. On behalf of the school, Mulberry School for Girls, and Dr. Ogden, I'm really delighted to meet you. And my question is, in your book and your podcast, you talk about the power of a mentor and a mentee. What was the best advice you received when you were younger? And if you could write a letter to your 16-year-old self, what would you say?
There's so much great advice that I've received. I could go on, but I will not, because we have a short amount of time. But I think one of the things that I still tell myself that I, told myself when I was younger or heard from mentors was that don't be so hard on yourself. Life is long. You have time for growth. That's part of the journey. And you're going to have bumps along the way, but that's a part of the process. And you can't define yourself by the bumps or the mistakes that you make. And sometimes we as young people, particularly as women, we're afraid to make mistakes. We're afraid to mess up because we feel like every mistake is the biggest thing that has happened to us. And what I've learned over the course of my long 57 years of life is that there are a few mistakes that you can't recover from or you don't learn from. So I continue to encourage myself to be okay with the things that I don't always get right, be okay with the fact that I am always growing. And in order to grow, that means you have to make mistakes, you have to try new things, and you can't let your fear dominate you, right? You can't let your fear of failure keep you from trying new things. You can't let your fear of what others say about you define who you are. The work now is working on your internal self, your own foundation, your own sense of who you want to be in the world, who you want to be as a person, is who you want to be as a young woman. And that takes time. So you have to be patient with yourself as you're learning, especially now. You all are so young, and you're not supposed to know who you're going to be right now. There is no reason why you have to know what occupation you're going to have, whether you want to be a mother. You don't have to know any of that right now. Your job, as I said earlier, is to learn and to prepare yourself and to have new experiences and to make a lot of mistakes and to recover from them and start building those chits of resilience that I talked about, right? That's your job, not to know it all, not to always be right, because that will never happen. So I want you all of you girls, to be kind to yourselves and be patient with your journeys, and don't judge yourself too harshly, especially now, because that just suffocates your ability to continue to learn and grow. And we want you to thrive. So you have to be as kind to yourself as you expect others to be to you.
And that's really hard sometimes, isn't it? We are our harshest critics all the time, aren't we? But I just wonder, Nusrat and Khadija, you've both left school, 16 when you were 16 years old. It's a way away now. What advice would you have given to yourselves? Khadija, what advice would have you given to yourself at 16? You know, you've done remarkably well since then, but what would you have said?
I think myself, one of the key things I would tell my 16-year-old self is to keep going, to keep striving for excellence, keep doing as well as I can, even though sometimes, as Mrs. Obama said, you might encounter some failures along the way, but the most important thing is how you get yourself back up and continue to go ahead in achieving your goals. So at 16, I had dreams of becoming a doctor. I've continued to stay focused, and now I'm almost 2 weeks away from actually becoming one. So, yeah.
Well done, you.
If it was me, I would say, you know what? The learning never stops. And it's something that's going to be with you forever and wherever you go. And I'm in a place right now where, you know, I graduated from law school. I'm figuring out what I want to do next. I'm governor at Mulberry Academy, Shoreditch, one of our trust schools here at Mulberry, one of the youngest governors in the country. But alongside that, I'm now finding my way around. I'm exploring the corporate world. I'm exploring what it's like in charities. And, you know, finding your way around and navigating yourself through that comes with the sisterhood and support around you. And that's really important.
Thank you, Nusrat. That's just really good advice for everybody. And you've done incredibly well, just amazing. I mean, all of you. But Tamana, your question really is about, you know, thinking to the future, isn't it? So do you want to go ahead now? Tamana left Mulberry School last year or the year before?
Just last year.
Just last year, but heading off to Cambridge in the autumn.
Yeah.
So my question is, at a time where the COVID-19 pandemic has affected so many people, and especially young women, what gives you hope for the future that women and girls won't be left behind? And what would you say to young women to remain optimistic about their futures?
Well, conversations like these keep me optimistic because meeting all of you, watching your growth, those of you who have left school already and who I've had the chance to know prior to this conversation, you all give me hope. Because listening to how thoughtful and insightful you are, how resilient and determined you've been, how strong and capable you are, that's what I see everywhere I go around the world. And sometimes we only hear the negatives, right? We hear of young women in distress. We hear of, women who are oppressed, and, we see the tough side of life, right? But I know that for every story of loss and hardship and failure, there are stories of success and a continued motivation to grow beyond what your circumstances have given you. I know that what you all have inside of you, we all have. It's just a matter of letting young girls know that they have the ability to develop those things in them. And it's our job as a society to continue to remove as many barriers as we can to allow more young women to flourish. So my confidence comes with the fact that I know you young women, and I am not surprised by what you are accomplishing because I know what you have in you. And so those are the kind of things that keep me motivated through times like this, and why I think these conversations are important, because I want more girls to see the possibility of what they have inside of them. And the only way we do that is to be honest and open about our stories. I want girls to see themselves in me. I want them to see themselves in all of you. And that means we have to show them our strengths and our imperfections. One of the reasons why I'm so truthful about my story and my highs and my lows is that it's easy for a young girl to look at me and say, well, that's Michelle Obama. She was the former first lady. People know her around the world. There's no way I have anything in common with her, right? So I can't be her. So it's important for me to strip all of this down, the fancy clothes, the titles, and to show you my truth as a young girl, that I struggled, that I didn't come from resources, that I failed big time, that I had challenges and self-doubt. You don't get here without going through that path. So my hope is that in this time of pandemic, these kind of conversations encourage other young girls as they hear us talk and see our stories, that there's something about our truth that resonates with them and gives them the courage to wake up the next day and try again. That's all you can do in these times, is wake up, prepare yourself, and get on with things for the next day.
Yeah, and it's harder. It's so hard for young people. Because you thought you had a certainty ahead of you, and this may be the first occasion when you realize that actually there isn't a certainty, and that there are going to be things that are going to challenge you all the time. And Samaya, you are just now about to leave school. Are you optimistic?
I'm very optimistic. I mean, I know what I want to be when I'm older, but I know that it is competitive and it is going to be hard to become a doctor. But I think I do have the motivation, and I hold what motivates me close. So I know that if I want to go and I made it clear to myself, then there's nothing that can actually stop me than me. So if I keep on pushing, then hopefully I can become a doctor.
And I hope that all of you do really feel that optimism for the future, because this is it is a blip in your lives, and the way you react to it, and as Mrs. Obama said in the beginning, if you take that on, and realize you've got through something really, really hard, that is such a positive thing for the future.
And Joe, you said something that, I just want to reemphasize, that one of the things that makes times like these harder for young people than it is for women like us who've lived a life is that what gets you through times like this is context, right? And that, unfortunately, that only comes with wisdom, sort of understanding that this is just a blip, right? And if you've only lived 12 or 15 years, what do you know about how long life can be and how many blips there will be? Joe, you and I know that, people who are older, this world has been through tough times. There have been challenges, right? And this isn't one of the greatest ones that we've experienced in the life of our countries, right? This is a blip, right? And while it feels like the world, it feels like everything, the loss of this year or two, we know that a year or two on the span of the possibilities of your life absolutely means nothing. This will not slow you down unless in your mind you psychologically tell yourself, oh my God, I can't do it because things, the unexpected happened. But life is full of unexpected things you cannot control. That is the only guarantee that we can give you, right? That something at some point in your life, something will happen to you that will throw you, right? And that is a guarantee. The question is, how do you respond? And some of the other students said this. It's not that you fail, it's how do you respond after the failure? And there are those who give up. There are those who fall prey to the loss, to the grief, to the hurt, to the trauma. And there are those of us who continue to rise. And that's what I want these young girls to know, what the girls that are listening to us. This will not be the first hard time they go through in their lives. There will be many more to come. That's what life is all about. You'll come to know that the more you live and the more you realize how strong you are and how tough you are and how much you can withstand. So I just wish you the strength and the fortitude to keep pushing even in the hard times.
And a pandemic is a terrible thing. And as Mrs. Obama said, there will be other blips in your life that you weren't expecting. But actually, when you look back, when you get to the ripe old age that we've got to, you'll look back sometimes and think, I thought that was a terrible thing at the time, but actually it helped me to do something else. And I think it's getting that sense that we think it might be bad at the time, but it's the way we react to it can lead on to something better, which is just really, really important. And that's really hard to know when you're your age. But Samaya, you've just told us about your optimism, but you all had a question as well, which I think Mrs. Obama will find very, very interesting in terms of women and leadership.
And Mrs. Obama, I just want to start off by saying that you're really a strong and influential woman. I would love to ask you, how did it feel being First Lady in a supportive role rather than a leader in your own right?
Oh, that's a wonderful question. I think that we have very limited notions of power in our world, right? Power looks like a certain thing. It looks male. It looks strong. It looks like leadership. It looks wealthy. It looks white, oftentimes. But I know that true power is it's about what's in here and what you do with that internal power and how you use it. So when I was First Lady, I saw myself as much of a leader as my husband, because I knew that I had a platform that would allow me to have impact. And it didn't matter that I was the First Lady or not the president. I understood that I have power in every position I hold, whether I'm out front or whether I'm behind or whether I'm supporting or whether my power is quiet, right? not all power is loud and vocal, you know? I mean, some of the best change happens in those quiet moments, in a classroom, in a one-on-one conversation with a young person. That's real power, right? Sometimes leaders have the least direct power, right? Because the president of the United States is working on macro issues, right? That aren't necessarily felt for generations sometimes, right? But the gentle or the soft power of being a teacher or being a mentor or being a parent, that's direct, right? That's immediate, right? When you think of the people who've had the most impact on your life, it's not the president of the United States. 9 times out of 10, it's the woman who tutored you. It's the man who said a kind thing to you, the neighbor who showed you love. Those are the things that sustain you. So what I know is that in any position I'm in, I have power. I don't need title. I don't need money. I don't need to look a certain way. I just need to appreciate the power that I have in this moment and to use that platform instead of looking around wishing that I had someone else's power. You know, each of you right now today, you have the power to change someone's life dramatically, right? Right now. There is someone in your lives who is younger than you, who knows a little bit less than you do. I don't care how old you are. You are modeling something for them. And please understand that power is the most important power, right? So don't feel like if you want to be a doctor, but don't think that your power comes from the title of being a doctor. It comes from within. And you're walking around with that power now. You don't need it validated by a degree or a salary. It's there, right? All you have to do is reach in and be willing to tap into it and use it. And that's what I did as First Lady. So I never felt like a secondary, resource on my husband's team. I felt like I had a crucial role to play, and my job then and there was to play the role that I had. You know?
And that was just seen on your London visits with all of us as well. But I think what you said there is so important, is that every single one of you or every single one of us on this call are role models, whether we know it or not. And we can be role models for good or for ill. And it's really, really important remembering that whether it's a little brother or a little sister, someone is looking up to you and wanting to be like you. And it's a very, very powerful thing. And it's great if we get it right. But if we forget that sometimes, then it can go wrong. So it's just remembering that a message I think, Mrs. Obama, you gave on your first visit was, when we are somewhere and we've got to where we want to be, just reach back and take other people with you. Yeah. Don't step on the shoulders of other people. You are there and you reach back and you take others with you. And I think that's what we've seen with Nusrat and with Khadija in what they're doing now, is that, they have success for themselves and fulfilled in many, many ways, but they are making sure that they are taking other people with them as well. And it's so important. I'm going to move on to another question, and it's one I think that every single young woman will identify with. And it's actually something that probably women of our age, we worry about for young people, because it's one of the issues we really didn't have to deal with when we were young. So Sawappa, do you want to start your question?
Thank you. As social media continues to expand with its ever-growing audience, what advice would you give to young women to stay true to themselves in 2021?
That is an excellent question, and it's one that I grapple with as I've raised my children in an age of social media, and it was something that we just never had to experience. So first of all, I have to recognize that it is different. And just to say don't use it or that it's bad is not really helpful, because it is your reality. It's your existence. So with that said, I think that the same rules apply, that you can't let what you read on social media define you. that if you're going to use it and be involved in it, you have to be involved in it in a way that protects your spirit, right? And so there are many good things that happen on social media. There's access to information, to people that we would never see, to communities and worlds we'd never know, to experiences. There's so much good there. But the bad part of it is really the bad part that's in society, the meanness that can be there, the irresponsibility, the negative energy, right? That's everywhere. That's in, if you have a bully at school, that can impact you if you're not prepared to protect yourself from that negative energy. So here's what I do with social media. I use it for the tool that it is, and I try to use it responsibly. So if I'm on it, I want to shed light. I don't want to use it to criticize someone else or to disparage anyone else. I want to use it like I hope everyone uses it. So I model in my behavior what I hope others will do. The other thing I do is that I don't use it as my fuel, right? Especially the negative part of it, right? You all still have choices of how deep you go into social media. If you, the toughest and I think the most dangerous parts of social media are the negative comments that can come, right? And that's something that you choose to engage with or not. And what I would urge all of you young girls to do is not to go deeply into the negative parts of social media. If you get a sign that there's something negative, don't continue to take that in. Don't read it over and over again. Erase it. Take it away from yourself. I joke, it's like if someone physically came up to you and pushed you down, you wouldn't continue to walk up to them and let them push you down or to hit you. You would walk away from them. And I'm always surprised that young people just sort of continue to go down these dark tunnels that only make them feel badly. And as a young person, you have to make the decision to pull yourself out of the dark tunnel, to move toward the light. And what happens with social media is that it requires you to be more mature and more responsible at a younger age. And so if we're going to have it, then young girls like you have to be smart and mature about how you access it. You can't just do it because it's the cool thing. If it doesn't feel good and doesn't feel right, you turn it off. You walk away from it. I never read the comments sections. I never read the negative comments sections that involve me, because I know that that's a distortion of what really people really feel or think. I can't let one negative comment define me, just like I wouldn't want you to let one bad experience define you. So that requires a level of maturity at a very young age. But if we're going to have it, then we have to get you guys ready to be a little more mature and a little more responsible than you would be when we were your age. So use social media for the good and leave the bad behind. And you'll know what's bad because you'll feel it in your gut. That means you turn it off, you don't engage at that level, and you move on to the next positive thing, if that helps.
And I think all of you will have experience of social media, but I think what you said, Mrs. Obama, there was about don't let it define you. Mm-hmm. And that's so important, that we don't let what other people say about us define us. And when I was growing up, my mum used to say sticks and stones can break your bones, but calling names cannot harm you. And it's the same thing, isn't it? It isn't, it's an action, it's people trying to bring you down on social media, and that should not be how you see yourself. And that's a really important message for you, that how you see yourself has to be built on your belief in yourself. And I know from the first moment you've spoken to us, Mrs. Balmer, 12 years ago, it was that sense of talking to the young women of how important they are. You described them as jewels, and it's recognizing and keeping that and cherishing the fact that you have so much inside of you, and that the people who are trying to bring you down, we should actually in a way feel sorry for them, because it's you who are there, who are strong, and it's they who would like to be as strong as you are. Just really, really important. We need to help them to get there.
That's right.
And I think, Nusrat, your question is really about how we get that sense of ourselves, isn't it? And how we harness that support around us. So do you want to go ahead with that?
Yes, thank you. Firstly, hi, Mrs. Obama. Nice to see you. I'm actually back at the place where it started with you in 2015, and I'm sitting in my form class for my final 2 years at Mulberry. So it's wonderful back as well. And before I actually get on to my question, I want to mention how, your visit to Mulberry and your book continues to teach us so much about sisterhood. And your visit to Mulberry has really galvanized the way for students and our community. And we've launched Global Girl Leading, and which is essentially a residential leadership camp for girls in the UK. And we're so lucky to take it to Singapore and Malaysia last year and build a global sisterhood, and not just a sisterhood within our community here. So my question to you is, a culture of belonging and support is key to sisterhood. And you talk about it a lot, about, how the female women in your life have been so influential for you. I guess then my question is, how important is sisterhood for you, and how important has it been for you in your life? And what is your favorite memory of, the gals in your life and your female friends? I'd love to know.
A great question. And first of all, let me just say, I am so proud of you. You look amazing. You continue to grow, and, watching you develop and continue to, embrace your voice just warms my heart. So it's wonderful to see you again. Sisterhood. Yes, sisterhood. That we don't get anywhere without it. And I have always invested in building relationships with other women in my life. And I will say that you have to make that a priority, right? That's a piece of advice that I would give you all, is to prioritize developing female relationships, because a lot of times we teach girls the most important thing is to get married, to find a spouse. But the truth is that while that's important, and let me just say for the record, I love my husband. He is my best friend and a wonderful partner. He supports me and lifts me up. But what I get from him is different from what I get from my friendships and my relationships with the women in my life. So one of the things that stands out, we just got back actually last week from what I call a mother-daughter trip that me and some of my girlfriends do with our daughters. We've done it for a good 10 years now. And we just finished it. And it's been fun to see the girls and their mothers, to see how the girls have grown. They were, in their teens, and now my daughters are 23 and 20 years old. And to spend a weekend or a week with other young people and their mothers, just talking through issues and having that time when you can sort of let life happen and let conversations happen naturally and hear their thoughts and ideas and have it be multi-generational. Those trips and those times with my mom friends and their daughters and our daughters, that lifts me up and gets me ready for the next thing. But we have to invest in that, and we have to understand that we as women aren't placed on this earth to compete with each other, that all boats rise when we invest in each other, when we reach back, as Joe has said, as I have said, when we continue to mentor and invest, we get so much more back. So we succeed when we all succeed. And there's plenty of room, plenty of power, plenty of opportunity for us to share our platform and our stage with someone else, with many someone else's. And sometimes we're taught that we have to compete with each other, that there's only a small piece of pie and we're all fighting for it, whatever it is. But that's the opposite of truth. The more you share, the more you embrace, the more you reach out, the bigger your community, the more love, the more support, the more truth, the more energy that comes into your life. And I want you guys to understand that now at a young age, and to start practicing that. To see other young girls as your peers and your teammates, and not as people to tear down. Because never in my life have I ever regretted being nice or kind to another woman. Yeah. The times that I regret are the times that I maybe wasn't thoughtful enough. The times that I didn't say the right thing. When I lose sleep at night, it's over something when I wasn't as supportive as I could be. And that's what I want you all to know, that, if you're being mean or bullying or being unsupportive, that's not the energy you want to carry through for your life. It is a burden. It's a negative energy to think that you've ever hurt someone, or you've caused someone or you stifled someone else's growth. You get power. You feel better about yourself. You feel secure in your place in the world the more you help others, particularly other women. And I think we need to teach that among girls, that bullying and competition, negative competition, is not the way we grow. It's not the way we will grow as a world or as a community or a society, and it's not how we'll grow as women. So I am so proud of you for reaching back. I'm proud of you for developing the leadership and mentorship work. That's what we owe for what we've received, and I continue to think that way. I think that for everything I'm given, I owe something back to someone else, and it helps me sleep at night. It brings a smile to my face. It brings joy to my life, and I want that for all of you as well.
Thank you. Well, you are the inspiration behind it.
Yeah, well done, Nashraf, and to all of you. But I think that is so true. And I know that both in Mulberry at EGA, that sense of when one person achieves, the whole community celebrates. It doesn't look on and think, oh, I feel jealous, I feel envious, I wish that person ill. It's about you, by succeeding, make a better community. You bring us all with you. And that's a really, really important, I think, ethos in both the schools, which is just great. And there is no need to think of people as competition. There is room up there for everybody. And, you don't rise up by putting anybody else down. And there's a really interesting sort of parallel going on at the moment, which you'll have picked up on as well. And it's about vaccines. And it's about which countries have access to vaccines and which don't. But the notion behind all this that we have to hang on to is we will not get on top of this pandemic until every single country in the world has access to vaccines. And it's the same sort of thing. We don't succeed by just concentrating on ourselves, and that we are better if we are surrounded by strong people who can contribute in the same way. And I think that's a really, really important message there. And we do that through our female friends, of making sure that everybody within our friendship group gains from us, learns from us, and we learn from them as well, rather than sort of being in competition. So, so important. Khadija, we haven't heard from you yet. And again, I think this will be really interesting for all of us as women, and the way that we actually have to juggle our lives, which is often quite different from the way that men have to juggle their lives sometimes. So over to you, Khadija.
Thank you, Miss. First of all, hi, Mrs. Obama. It's such a blessing meeting you again. I first met you in 2009 when I sang in the choir for you, and in 2012 I was there. You flew us down to Washington DC to meet you in the White House. So it's honestly such a blessing to see you again, and you've instilled a lot of hope and empowered me to do a lot of the things that I do, especially relating to enhancing the diversity of healthcare in the UK, encouraging mentorship for the young girls, especially here at EGA, but also across London, and more so empowering young girls in the continent of Africa through health and education in order to lead sustainable livelihoods. And so my question to you is, this is a question that I get asked a lot as well, but I want to know what you think. Juggling so many leadership roles, but also, you successfully did so well in college, and then also having to maintain your family relationships, as well as looking after your mental health. How do you juggle all of these things?
Oh, that's a wonderful question. And let me again say, it's so wonderful to see you in your womanhood. You are beautiful and articulate, and I am just amazed to watch you just continue to become. So it's so good to see you again. How do we juggle it all? We don't, I guess, is the short answer. And that's where forgiving yourself and creating reasonable goals is important, right? Because, we are women, we are strong, but we have also the unique ability to bear life, and that takes a toll. That is a tremendous act. It's a tremendous responsibility, and it changes how we can approach the world oftentimes. But that's okay, because our life is a series of chapters, right? And each chapter has its moment and its time, and we have to be patient in that chapter and not look at the next ones and thumb through the book to see how it finishes. Because if you're looking ahead at the next chapter or worrying about the next chapter, you can't fully be in the one that you're in, right? So I've learned to be, as I started this conversation, more patient with myself when it has come to the challenges that come before me, right? So who I thought I could be and what I thought I could do when I was your age, before I got married, when I was just pursuing my profession, I felt very differently when I gave birth to my first daughter. My body told me something else. I had feelings and emotions that I didn't expect to have. And there's no way I should have known that. So what I had to do was be patient with myself to say that, well, this is a new chapter. This is something different. And so now I have to be flexible with myself and be adaptable in my life to accommodate this new chapter, the new things that are happening in this chapter, right? That may mean that I have to slow down on one set of goals to push ahead on something else. Life is a series of, if you think of it as a car, where you're pushing the accelerator and sometimes pushing the brake, right? You can't stop and go at the same time. And that's the thing I had to learn. When I was having my children, because of what my husband was doing, he was in the middle of his political career. He was trying, we didn't know what that would do. So I had to learn to readjust what I thought my career would look like. And we had to have that discussion as a team, who was going to push ahead and who was going to push back. But kids grow up. Even that chapter for me is now over. My children are away at college, right? They're not in my home. Now, pandemic means they're around a little bit more than we thought, but they're in a different place. So now my life opens up. I can press the gas a little bit more than I did when I was in that chapter of mothering them on a daily basis. And that is the beauty of womanhood, because we can do so much. We learn to be flexible. We learn to be adaptable. And while that feels like a burden in the short term, let me tell you, as you get older, women are able to adjust quicker and faster to new changes and new chapters than I've seen many men be able to do, because we've had to do it. And I count that as a strength, not a burden. And it's a new learning that I would never have had. So I guess the general message is that you aren't supposed to be able to do it all at the same time. And don't be frustrated with yourself if you have to make a change in your life. The other thing is that we don't do any of this alone. We don't build a life. We can't be women. We can't raise our families or be good in our professions alone. We need help. And if we're taught that we're supposed to do it all by ourselves, well, that's when it gets hard. That's when it gets impossible, because no one can do it alone, and we weren't meant to do it alone. That's where we have to lean on the community of women that we've developed, or our mentors, or our families, to give us the support and aid we need in times of struggle. There was no way that I could have been First Lady and raised my kids to be thoughtful, engaged, and loved individuals if my mother hadn't come to the White House with me and been a support to me and to my husband through that time. But if I had been too proud to ask her for help, it would have been harder for me. So we as women have to learn that it's okay to ask for help. In fact, it's necessary to have that help and to make choices that put you in a place where you have access to support, right? So we don't do it alone. And I've learned, the older I've gotten, is that I do have to balance my mental health, my physical health, and my responsibilities, that they're all equally important. Right? So I can't work and be a hard driving professional if I'm not in physical good health, if I'm not taking time out to exercise or to eat well. I can't be a good mother if I'm not emotionally in a good place because I'm overworked and I'm too tired, and I'm angry or frustrated, So all the parts have to be balanced out. And that may mean that you can't drive all the way through. You can't just be the best worker, that sometimes you have to say no. Sometimes you have to take a step back, and it's okay. Because the moment you have to take a step back, that just means the next chapter means that you can push ahead. And we have to be patient with that journey. It's long, and it can be challenging, but if we have the support of people around us, then the burden is just a little bit less. So I hope that helps.
I think it really does. And if you think back over the past year, everybody, where in the world have we seen success with coping with the pandemic? And that's where we've had female leadership. And we've had female leadership in New Zealand, where the Prime Minister there actually had a child while she was in office and dealing with all this. So because she had the right support around her. And I think that's really, really important to recognise that it can be done with that right support. And all of you here, you make decisions now, you prioritise for yourself. And you, Khadija, at the moment, will be concentrating on your exams. For the next in 2 weeks' time, you're going to do your exams. And so therefore you'll be leaving some bits behind. Now, okay, it's not like giving birth and having a child, but it is using the same sorts of skills that we have to do, that we cannot keep doing it all. And I love the fact that you brought mental health into it too, because that's something that we didn't used to talk about. We used to see it as a weakness, and that people would be afraid to say, I'm feeling I can't cope, or I'm feeling depressed and I'm feeling very weepy. But now it's so important that we do all recognize that we have got limits, that we're not perfect, and that we all look up to Mrs. Obama as a role model. And what we really appreciate, Mrs. Obama, is that you are so honest, of just letting us know that you are human and you have the same frailties that we have. And lots of thoughts about how we might sort of come to terms with them for ourselves as well. So that was really, really, really important to us. Now, I've got a question. We've all asked a question here, a question really for all of us, really. And it's about your hopes and aspirations for the future, because you're so involved in other things as well, in your Girls Opportunity Alliance. And you've had a connection with us for so long. And what we would really like is to continue to be involved and to continue to support you in that. So it's a question really, how can we from Mulberry and from EGA as adults and as students, how can we support you in this fantastic work? Well,
that's wonderful for you to ask, Jo. The truth is that you're supporting me every day by doing what you do. And that's the truth. Because the goal for the work that I do is to empower and to give voice and to give life to other young people, particularly young girls. And the work of Mulberry and EGA, that is the everyday work that helps to push my overall agenda forward. You know better than anybody the power of investing in young girls and women, and you're doing that every day. We're just trying to shine a light on that work so that other countries, other communities see the benefit to the work that you do and then replicate it, right? You know what the girls in your community need. That's true for every community, every small village, every rural town, and every part of the world. There are leaders who understand what their communities need. You provide an example to others who may be trying new things, exploring things for the first time. So the fact that the work you do is something that I can lift up, that these young girls that graduate every year and go on to do amazing things and make room for others that I can continue to lift up and show the world and to show other leaders that this is what you get from this investment, how powerful and impactful and important it is to the development of the entire society, to the entire world. Well, that's all I need. But I do want this relationship to continue, not just symbolically, but these kind of interactions, because I think it's so important for us to let young girls like these know that our investment in them is real and it's not going away. That when we say we're going to do something for young people, that we do it. And that's why this ongoing relationship has been so important for me, because I want the girls to know that important people, when they make promises, they keep them and they continue to show up. And that this isn't just a fluke. This isn't just a political statement. This is a true belief that we have, an investment that we have. And we will continue to show up for you as long as you continue to do the work of going to school, preparing yourself, building your chits of resilience, reaching back. And if we're all doing that, that's power. That's where change happens. Not at the senior levels, not in the palace or the White House, but by the everyday work that you all do to prepare yourselves and to reach back and help others. That's how we make the change. And that's what I need from all of you.
And you have exemplified that, haven't you? It would have been so easy after that first visit in 2009 to move on to other things and to just dip into other people and other places. But you have sustained that relationship with us. You've actually made sure that you've held the faith with us. And for all of us associated with EGA and Mulberry, past and present, it made such a huge impact on our lives here. So that is just wonderful for us, and for that we do thank you. Now I'm getting very strong prods that I've got to start to wrap this up and to finish at 5 p.m. on the dot, because you will be called off to other things. But again, Mrs. Obama, thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, Jo.
I know that I speak from everybody on this call that it's been, once again, such a empowering, wonderful opportunity to share thoughts with you. We do think you're an inspirational person, and you've used that to such power in our schools, and will continue to do so for both Mulberry and EGA. You're such an important part of our history and have inspired so many young women to go on so that they can make an impact as well. So thank you again, and it's lovely to see you.
I can't wait until we're over this pandemic and we can be together in person, because what I love nothing more than these conversations is a couple of hugs to go along with them. And I have desperately missed that.
This past year, how on earth have you coped with it? I can't imagine.
Well, we will continue to work together. That is my commitment to all of you. I will continue to do my part and stay consistent and true to the promises that I've made. And I look forward to being with you all in person very soon. So until then, you all continue to work, continue to stay positive, and just take life one day at a time. And I know you'll do great things. So I love you all more than you could know.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Wow, well done, girls. Well done. Got some water. Now, absolutely brilliant you were. Fantastic, all of you.